The hour of convening having arrived, all members will please report to their assigned seats and take their seats. All members will report to the House of Representatives. The clerk will ring the bell. All members will please take your seats. We are going to have the morning roll call. All members present will please vote green to signify their presence in the chamber, and the clerk will unlock the machines. Chairman Dubnik, would you vote Chairman Chokas present, please? Have all members voted? Have all members now voted? All right, we're going to lock the machines. Doorkeepers will please close the doors and keep them closed. Well, good morning. Welcome to Legislative Day 19. We will begin our day as we do each day with scripture reading and prayer by the chaplain, after which we will pledge allegiance to the flag of our country. Our chaplain this morning will be introduced by the gentleman from the 138th House District, Chairman Mike Chokas. Chairman Chokas.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Well, good morning, everyone. It is indeed a pleasure for me to bring back to this house Pastor Bud Womack. He is the pastor of the Life Point Church in Americus, Georgia. He's been there for 22 years. And he's also the chaplain for the Sumter County Sheriff's Department. I've gotten to know Pastor Bud through a number of different things that has happened in our lives. And especially this past year with the pandemic and the challenges that we've been facing, riots, defunding the police, all type of things that came to mind. And when you have these challenges, I felt the need to appeal to a higher authority. So I called my wife. And she said that was even beyond her capabilities and said for me to call Pastor Bud. And so today, it is my honor to bring Pastor Bud to share his message with the People's House. Thank you.
Let me first say thank you to Representative Chokas and to Speaker Ralston for allowing me to be here today, and thank you for what you do and the business you conduct for the great state of Georgia. I do have a couple of shout outs that I want to give. Of course, my wife is here. She allowed me to be here. I've got the same kind of conduct from mine that Mike has with his. But my two daughters, Kayla and Kelsey, my son-in-law Earl, they're workers, they're educators, and they're working today. Our youngest one is in class right now, getting ready to be an educator. And then there's two other young men that I really want to do a special shout out to, and two young men that are very close to me that really bring a different perspective in life and ministry for me, and that's Nathan Mathis and Josh Masters. Back home, they're able to see this, and so they're great young men, and just wanted to give a little shout out to them. I'd like to start out with a little humor this morning, as I always do most of the time in my pulpit. I do, and the Bible says that laughter does good like a medicine, so everybody ought to leave here feeling really good today. There was a devoted Christian woman that always prayed every day. She prayed out loud. She would begin to shout in her house, and every day when she did that, the windows were open. Her next door neighbor was not as convinced that he needed to be a believer and so dogmatic about her religion or his religion as she was, and so he always fussed about her praying and shouting and having a good time with gospel music playing. One particular day, this woman was in her room, and she was praying, and she was talking to God, and she said, God, I need some groceries. The refrigerator's bare, the cupboard's bare. I need some groceries. I believe you're going to send me some groceries. And she got excited and started shouting again. And the guy had about all he could stand. So he went to the grocery store, bought 2 full bags of groceries, come back to her house, knocked on the door. She answered the door, and he shoved 2 bags of groceries in her arms. He said, there's your groceries. Now stop it. Well, all of a sudden, this woman just laid the groceries down, and she started shouting and dancing and praising the Lord all over the porch. He said, lady, what's the matter with you? What's the matter with you? God didn't give you these groceries. I brought these groceries. Why are you shouting? She said, not only did God provide me groceries, he made the devil deliver them. It's got nothing to do with what I'm prepared to say this morning, but I thought it was humorous. You know, throughout the ministry of Jesus, he dealt with people and he spoke to people on the level of parables. And a parable is a story that brings life into line. It kind of deals with reality, and it puts it all together. In Matthew chapter 13, verses 1 through 9, Jesus shared one of these parables, and this is what it says. He says, listen, a farmer went out to plant some seeds. As he scattered them across the field, some seeds fell on a footpath. The birds came and ate them. Other seeds fell on shallow soil and underlying rock. The seeds sprouted quickly, but the soil was shallow. The plants soon wilted under the hot sun since they didn't have deep roots. They died. Other seeds fell among thorns that grew up and choked out the tender plants, and still other seeds fell on fertile soil, and they produced a crop that was, listen to this, 30, 60, and even 100 times as much as had been planted. Anyone with ears to hear should listen and understand. The seed that this farmer planted found itself in 4 different areas, 4 different places of soil or places that was around the good ground. Number 1 was the footpath. Second one was the shallow, rocky soil. And then there was the briar patch. And then there was the good soil that it was on. The bottom line is this. Any seed has the potential for growth. Any seed has a potential of growth. And the fact is, it's in their DNA to grow. The seed, that's just what seeds do. When they're planted, when they're placed, they grow. But where the seed is planted determines if the seed will multiply or not. You see, God never said to the farmer one time, create a seed. He never one time told him to make a seed or cause a seed to grow. God never said that he should prevent the seed from falling on other ground. But he did say to the farmer, plant the seed, scatter the seed. We also know that the seed that this farmer put out, that he scattered, no matter where it fell, was good seed, because the seed that fell on good ground multiplied 30, 60, and 100%. We know that. Now, let me show you a few things this morning, if you will, about the seed. Number 1 is this. If we're not careful, we'll try to perfect something that God has already perfected. A farmer can't spend his time inspecting every seed that goes out. He can't spend his time looking at every one, making sure it's a perfect seed. His job is to simply plant the seed that he has access to. As a pastor, it's not my job to determine or select who hears the message of Christ. It's my job to deliver the message I have access to. Number 2 is this: don't try to determine the purpose of where the seed lands. Most people would discount the first 3 areas where the seed fell. The first one was the footpath. Now, some may think it was a waste, but I don't think it was a waste, because what you see is the seed that fell was used to feed birds. Listen, what you may see as waste may be what somebody else needs to survive. The other 2 grounds was the shallow rocky ground and a briar patch. These seeds sprouted, but they died. They didn't make it. This may also look like a waste. After all, it was good seed. We know that from our previous discussion. But even though it was good seed and it fell there and it died, this is a place of training and development. It wasn't a place of training and development for the seed, but it was a place of training and development for those that were watching the seed, those that saw the seed. And what some may see as waste may be exactly what's needed for somebody else to see where not to go or what not to do. Here's the third thing: do what you do and let God handle the rest. You're only responsible for what God has given you to do. We must not give more attention to what we can't change over what we can change. The farmer took extreme care of the seed that he was given. The seed that fell on the good ground, he fertilized it. He watered it. He kept the weeds out of it. Now, I'm not saying that the other seed didn't have purpose or potential, but what I am saying is this: it was only his responsibility for the seed that was placed under his care, the seed that he was given to take care of. You see, I've met people, and you've met people I know as well, who only complained about what didn't produce rather than being happy and excited about what did produce. Let me sum it up like this. 1 Corinthians chapter 3, verse 5 and 6, Paul makes this writing. He says, "Who is Apollos and who is Paul? We're only God's servants through whom you believe the good news. Each of us did the work the Lord gave us. I planted the seed in your hearts. Apollos watered it, but it was God who made it grow." My friend, we'll only harvest what we plant. We cannot plant corn and expect to harvest wheat. It's our job to do what we're called to do. And if we'll do our job, God will certainly do his job. So the question is this: what has God given you to plant? What has God blessed you with that you can plant so others can see it? Regardless of where it lands, just plant it. Just plant it. Would you stand with me for a word of prayer, please? Father, we come to you today with grateful hearts. God, we're thankful that you have allowed us to be a part of this day. Lord, I am extremely thankful for the men and women that come into this chamber, come into this house day after day, session after session, meeting after meeting, to try to make decisions that are great for our state. Lord, today I ask you to bless them. I ask you to use them in a mighty way. God, let us search our hearts. Let us search our lives, God, so that when we look at it, we can say, Lord, I'm taking care of what you've given me responsibility to take care of. I'm doing what you've called me to do. Lord, I pray that our hearts be tender and our ears be softened to listen and receive the direction of you. God, I pray that you would bless our governor, our lieutenant governor, our Speaker of the House, every representative, and every senator. Guide our steps today. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen and amen. Would you join me for the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, sir.
Doorkeepers will unlock the doors. Chair recognizes Chairman Hogan, the chair of the Committee on Information and Audits.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your Committee on Information and Audits has read the journal of the previous legislative day and found it to be correct. And furthermore, Mr. Speaker, up in Blue Ridge, there were these two hillbillies that were sipping shine on the front porch when a truck went by with a load of rose sod. I'm going to do that when I win the lottery, said Hillbilly 1. Do what? Said Hillbilly 2. Send my lawn out and get it mowed.
Mr. Chairman, you're just jealous because you're not one of those hillbillies, I tell you that. Chairman Hogan, the chair of the Committee on Information and Audits, reports that the journal of the previous legislative day has been read and found to be correct. Is there any objection to the confirmation of the journal? The chair hears none, and the journal is confirmed. The clerk will read the resolution establishing the order of business for the day.
Mr. Burns, 159th moves following be established as the order of business under the first part of the period, unanimous consents. Introduction of bills and resolutions, first reading and reference of House bills and resolutions, second reading of bills and resolutions, reports of standing committees, first reading and reference of Senate bills and resolutions, morning orders.
Is there any objection to the adoption of the resolution establishing the order of business for the day? The chair hears none, and the resolution is adopted. First reading of bills and resolutions, the clerk will read.
House Bill 2 by Representative Dunhoover, the 30th, Tarver the 2nd, Barr the 103rd, Cantrella the 22nd, Clark of the 147th, and others. Bill being titled Act to amend Article 1 of Chapter 3 of Title 12, the official code of Georgia annotated relating to general provisions regarding parks, historic areas, and memorials.
Public Safety and Homeland Security.
House Bill 485 by Representative Moore, the 95th, Werkheiser, the 157th, Holcomb of the 81st, Mitchell, the 88th, Kennedy, the 102nd, and others. Bill being titled Act to amend the official code of Georgia annotated so as to repeal the imposition of the death penalty.
Judiciary non-civil.
House Bill 486 by Representative Moore, the 95th, Friday, the 118th, Dollar, the 45th. Bill being titled Act to amend Code Section 48.7, 40.26 of the official code of Georgia annotated relating to income tax credit for felon.
Creative Arts and Entertainment.
House Bill 487 by Representative Dreyer, the 59th. Bill being titled Act to amend Article 3, Chapter 13, and Title 48 of the official code of Georgia annotated relating to excise tax on rooms.
Ways and Means.
House Bill 488 by Representative Scoggins, the 14th, Kelly, the 16th. Lever to the 33rd, Lumsden to the 12th, Gamble the 15th, and others. They'll be titled Act to amend Title 15 of the official code of Georgia annotated relating to courts.
Judiciary.
House Bill 489 by Representative Moore, the 95th, Wynn of the 89th, Holcomb of the 81st. Bill be titled Act to amend Chapter 6 of Title 16 of the official code of Georgia annotated relating to sexual offenses.
Judiciary non-civil.
House Bill 490 by Representative Hill of the 3rd, Tarver of the 2nd. Bill be titled Act to amend the Act creating the Office of Commissioner of Catoosa County.
Intergovernmental Coordination.
House Bill 491 by Representative Blackman of the 146th, Kelly the 16th, Taylor of the 173rd, Powell of the 32nd, Hatchett of the 150th, and others. Bill be titled Act to amend Chapter 2 of Title 21 of the official code of Georgia annotated relating to elections and primaries generally.
Special Committee on Election Integrity.
House Bill 492 by Representative Blackman of the 146th, Kelly the 16th, Taylor of the 173rd, Powell of the 32nd, Hatchett of the 150th. Bill being titled an act to amend Chapter 2 of Title 21, the official code of Georgia annotated relating to primaries and elections generally.
Special Committee on Election Integrity.
House Bill 493 by Representative Blackman of the 146th, Kelly the 16th, Taylor 173rd, Powell the 32nd, Hatchett of the 150th, and others. Bill being titled an act to amend Chapter 2 of Title 21 of the official code of Georgia annotated relating to elections and primaries generally.
Special Committee on Election Integrity.
House Bill 494 by Representative Burchett of the 176th, Corbett of the 174th, Watson of the 172nd, Smith of the 18th, and Williams of the 148th. Bill being titled an act to amend Chapter 2 of Title 21 of the official code of Georgia annotated relating to elections and primaries generally.
Special Committee on Election Integrity.
House Bill 495 by Representative Crowe of the 110th, Wiedauer of the 119th, Williams of the 145th, and Hitchens of the 161st. Bill being titled an act to amend Article 1 of Chapter 3 of Title 35 and Article 2 of Chapter 1 of Title 42 of the official code of Georgia annotated relating to general provisions regarding the Georgia Bureau of Investigation.
Public Safety and Homeland Security.
House Bill 496 by Representative Burchett of the 176th, Burns of the 159th, Rhodes of the 120th, Ridley of the 6th, and Williams of the 148th. Bill being titled an act to amend Code Section 32-628, the official code of Georgia annotated relating permits for vehicles.
Transportation.
House Bill 497 by Representative Astration to the 104th. Bill being titled an act to amend the official code of Georgia annotated so as to revise, modernize, correct errors or omissions in.
Code Revision.
House Bill 498 by Representative Watson of the 172nd, Dickey of the 140th, LaHood of the 175th, England of the 116th, and Perkle of the 155th. Bill being titled an act to amend Part 1 of Article 2 of Chapter 5 of Title 48 of the official code of Georgia annotated relating to property tax exemptions.
Ways and Means.
House Bill 499 by Representative Evans, the 57th, McLean of the 100th, Buckner of the 137th, Nguyen of the 89th, McLeod of the 105th, and others. Bill being titled an act to amend Chapter 4, Title 34 of the official code of Georgia annotated relating to minimum wage law.
Industry and Labor.
House Bill 500 by Representative Burchett of the 176th, Blackman of the 146th, Dickey the 140th, Rhodes the 120th, and Watson the 172nd. Bill be titled an act to amend Code Section 33-1-25, the official code of Georgia annotated relating to the Georgia Agribusiness and Rural Jobs Act.
Ways and Means.
House Bill 501 by Representative Blackman of the 146th and Roberts the 52nd. Bill being titled an act to amend Chapter 2 of Title 21 of the official code of Georgia annotated relating to primaries and elections generally.
Special Committee on Election Integrity.
House Bill 502 by Representative Smith of the 18th, Abstration of the 104th, Lopez of the 86th, Goggins the 14th, and Walensky the 79th. Bill being titled an act to amend Article 1 of Chapter 10 of Title 17 of the official code of Georgia annotated relating to the procedure for sentencing and imposition of punishment.
Public Safety and Homeland Security.
House Bill 503 by Representative Watson of the 172nd, Blackman of the 146th, Corbett of the 174th, Houston of the 170th, and Stevens of the 164th. Bill being titled an act to amend Part 1 of Article 1 of Chapter 8 of Title 48, the official code of Georgia annotated relating to general provisions regarding sales and use taxes.
Ways and Means.
House Bill 504 by Representative Williamson of the 115th, Reeves of the 34th, Burns of the 159th, Knight of the 130th, Blackman of the 146th, and others. Bill being titled an act to amend Code Section 33-1-25, the official code of Georgia annotated relating to the Georgia Agribusiness and Rural Jobs Act.
Ways and Means.
House Bill 505 by Representative Nguyen of the 89th, Beverly of the 143rd, Gilliard of the 162nd, Bodie of the 62nd, Jackson of the 64th, and others. Bill be titled an act to amend Article 2, Chapter 3, Title 16 of the official code of Georgia annotated relating to justification and excuse.
Judiciary Non-Civil.
House Bill 506 by Representative Gamble of the 15th, Williams of the 145th, Scoggins the 14th, Gullett of the 19th, Moptahan of the 17th, and others. Bill being titled an act to amend Chapter 2 of Title 21 of the official code of Georgia annotated relating to elections and primaries generally.
Special Committee on Election Integrity.
House Bill 507 by Representative Williams, the 145th, Jaspers, the 11th, Crowe, the 110th, Year to the 152nd, Scoggins, the 14th, and others. Bill being titled an act to amend Chapter 2 of Title 21, the official code of Georgia annotated relating to elections and primaries generally.
Special Committee on Election Integrity.
House Bill 508 by Representative Carpenter, the 4th, Gaines, the 117th, Moore, the 95th, Reeves, the 34th, and Fry, the 118th. Bill be titled an act to amend Chapter 1 of Title 10, the official code of Georgia annotated relating to selling and other trade practices.
Creative Arts and Entertainment.
House Bill 509 by Representative Gaines, the 117th, Kelly, the 16th, Cooper, the 43rd, Wiedauer, the 119th, Lumsden, the 12th, and others. Bill being titled an act to amend Article 1 of Chapter 30 of Title 33, the official code of Georgia annotated relating to general provisions relative to group or blanket accident and sickness insurance.
Insurance.
House Bill 510 by Representative Gaines, the 117th, Stevens, the 164th, Clark, the 147th, Houston, the 170th, Cooper, the 43rd, and others. Bill be titled an act to amend Article 2, Chapter 7, of Title 4080 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to the imposition of rate computation and exemptions from income taxes.
Ways and
House
Means.
Bill 511 by Representative Reeves, the 34th, England, and the 116th, Blackman, and the 146th, Williamson, and the 115th, Mitchell, the 88th, and others. Bill being titled an act to amend Titles 12, 19, 27, 28, 31, 40, 45, 48, and 49 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to conservation and natural resources.
Appropriations.
House Bill 512 by Representative Jaspers of the 11th, Williams of the 145th, Barton of the 5th, Ridley of the 6th, and Tarvin of the 2nd. Bill being titled an act to amend Chapter 2 of Title 21 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to elections and primaries generally.
Special Committee on Election Integrity.
House Bill 513 by Representative Benton of the 31st. Bill be titled an act to amend Article 1 of Chapter 3 of Title 50 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to state and other flags.
Rules.
House Bill 514 by Representative Hutchinson of the 107th, Cooper the 43rd, Oliver the 82nd, Beverly the 143rd, and Dempsey the 13th, and others. Bill be titled an act to amend Article 1 of Chapter 24 of Title 33 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to insurance generally.
Insurance.
House Bill 515 by Representative Wilson of the 80th, Couch of the 50th, Allen of the 40th, and Schofield of the 60th. Bill being titled an act to amend Code Section 33.9.4, the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to standards applicable to make and uses of rates.
Insurance.
House Bill 516 by Representative Mathiak of the 73rd, Bond of the 72nd, Camp of the 131st, Knight of the 130th, Gravely of the 67th, and others. Bill being titled an act to amend Part 3 of Article 3 of Chapter 12 of Title 16 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to sales or distribution of harmful materials.
Judiciary Non-Civil.
House Bill 517 by Representative Carson, the 46th, Knight of the 130th, Blackman, the 146th, Newton, the 123rd, Belton, the 112th, and others. Bill be titled an act to amend Chapter 2A of Title 20 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to student scholarship organizations.
Education.
House Bill 518 by Representative Mitchell, the 106th, Evans, the 57th, Wilkerson, the 38th, Scott of the 76th, Lewis Ward of the 109th, and others. Bill being titled an act to amend Chapter 2 of Title 20 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to elementary and secondary education.
Education.
House Bill 519 by Representative Mitchell, the 106th, Wilkerson, the 38th, Evans, the 57th, Scott of the 76th, Maynard, the 56th, and others. Bill be titled an act to amend Article 4 of Chapter 2 of Title 20 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to increased flexibility for local school systems.
Education.
House Bill 520 by Representative Singleton of the 71st, Jones of the 25th, Martin of the 49th, and Dreyer of the 59th. Bill be titled an act to amend Article 1 of Chapter 40 of Title 50 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to general provisions regarding promotion and deployment of broadband services.
Energy, Utilities, and Telecommunications.
House Bill 521 by Representative Lim of the 99th. To be titled an act to amend Chapter 6A, Title 12 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to outdoor stewardship.
Game, Fish, and Parks.
House Bill 522 by Representative Lim of the 99th. Bill being titled an act to amend Article 1 of Chapter 1 and Title 7 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to provisions applicable to the Department of Banking and Finance.
Banks and Banking.
House Bill 523 by Representative Lim of the 99th. Bill being titled an act to amend Chapter 1 of Title 31 and Article 1 of Chapter 24, Title 33, the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to general provisions relative to health and insurance.
Special Committee on Access to Quality Health Care.
House Bill 524 by Representative Lim of the 99th, Parker of the 101st, Maynard of the 56th, and Thomas of the 65th. Bill being titled an act to amend Article 1 of Chapter 7 and Title 44 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to landlord and tenant generally.
Judiciary.
House Bill 525 by Representative Lim of the 99th, Maynard of the 56th, and Thomas of the 65th. Bill being titled an act to amend Part 4 of Article 1 of Chapter 18 and Title 43 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to operation of funeral establishments.
Regulated
House
Industries.
Bill 526 by Representative Neal of the 74th, Gilliard of the 162nd, Walensky the 79th, Fry of the 118th, and Taylor of the 91st. Bill being titled an act to amend Article 4, Chapter 4, Title 17 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to arrests by private persons.
Judiciary Non-Civil.
House Bill 527 by Representative Neal of the 74th and Parker of the 101st. Bill being titled an act to amend Article 2, Chapter 7 and Title 48 the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to imposition rate computation and exemptions from income taxes.
Ways and Means.
House Bill 528 by Representative Neal of the 74th, Gilliard of the 162nd, Fry of the 118th, Bodie of the 62nd, Taylor of the 91st. Bill being titled an act to amend Chapter 1 and Title 51 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to general provisions of torts.
Public Safety and Homeland Security.
House Bill 529 by Representative Neal, the 74th, and Bodie, the 62nd. Bill be titled an act to amend Article 1 and Chapter 2 of Title 40, the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to general provisions regarding registration and licensing of motor vehicles.
Motor Vehicles.
House Bill 530 by Representative Knight of the 130th, Dickey the 140th. Burns the 159th. Bill being titled an act to amend Chapter 4, Title 1 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to state holidays and observances.
State Planning and Community Affairs.
House Bill 531 by Representative Fleming of the 121st and Jones of the 47th and others to be entitled an act to amend Chapter 2 of Title 21, the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to elections and primaries generally.
Special Committee on Election Integrity.
House Resolution 172 by Representative Smith, the 133rd, and Parsons, the 44th. Resolution creating a House Study Committee on Georgia Utility Facility Safety Improvements.
Energy, Utilities, and Telecommunications.
House Resolution 173 by Representative Lim of the 99th. Resolution proposing an amendment to the Constitution so as to authorize the General Assembly to provide by general law.
Game, Fish, and Parks.
Senate Bill 52 by Senator Thompson, the 14th, Dugan of the 30th, Kennedy the 18th, Cowser the 46th, and Mullis the 53rd, and others. Bill be titled an act to amend Chapter 1 of Title 10 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to selling and other trade practices.
Judiciary.
Senate Bill 81 by Senator Mullis, the 53rd, Miller the 49th, Anderson the 43rd, Dugan of the 30th, and Walker of the 20th, and others. Bill being titled an act to amend Code Section 2437, the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to the Office of College and Career Transitions.
Higher Education.
Senate Bill 88 by Senator Goodman of the 8th, Jackson of the 2nd, Tippins the 37th, Sims of the 12th, and Burns the 23rd, and others. Bill be titled an act to amend Chapter 2 of Title 20, the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to elementary and secondary education.
Education.
That completes first readers.
Second reading of bills and resolutions. The clerk will read.
House Bill 462 by Representative Gilliard of the 162nd and Stevens of the 164th, a bill relating to special districts for transit purposes. House Bill 463 by Representative Gilliard of the 162nd, a bill relating to emergency telephone number 911 system. House Bill 464 by Representative Scoggins of the 14th, Gamble of the 15th, Williams of the 145th, Everett of the 33rd, and Smith of the 18th, a bill relating to Guardian and Ward. House Bill 465 by Representative Gullett of the 19th, Gravely of the 67th, Ridley of the 6th, Mumpton of the 17th, Singleton of the 71st, and others, a bill relating to general provisions applicable to counties and municipal corporations. House Bill 466 by Representative Powell of the 32nd, Williams of the 145th, Ridley of the 6th, Corbett of the 174th, Petrie of the 166th, and others, a bill relating to driver's licenses and driver training schools. House Bill 467 by Representative Kendrick of the 93rd, Drenner of the 85th, Mitchell of the 88th, Lopez of the 86th, Carter of the 92nd, and others, a bill relating to general provisions regarding specific business and occupation taxes. House Bill 468 by Representative Carpenter of the 4th, Montana of the 17th, Thomas of the 21st, Smith of the 18th, Martin of the 49th, a bill relating to emergency powers of the governor. House Bill 469 by Representative Stevens of the 164th and Newton of the 123rd, a bill relating to imposition rate, computation, and exemptions from state income taxes. House Bill 470 by Representative Washburn of the 141st, Kelly of the 16th, Burchett of the 176th, Wiedauer of the 119th, Abstration of the 104th, a bill relating to regulation of specialized land transactions. House Bill 471 by Representative McLaurin of the 51st, Cantrell of the 22nd, Cowsher of the 50th, and Paris of the 142nd, a bill relating to Brady law regulations. House Bill 472 by Representative Jones of the 53rd, a bill relating to primaries and elections. House Bill 473 by Representative Jones of the 53rd and Cannon of the 58th, a bill relating to holidays and observances. House Bill 474 by Representative Cooper of the 43rd, Drenner of the 85th, Jasper of the 11th, and Smith of the 70th, a bill relating to regulation of controlled substances. House Bill 475 by Representative Schofield of the 60th, Davis of the 87th, Scott of the 76th, Burnell of the 77th, McLeod of the 105th, and others, a bill relating to general provisions regarding the General Assembly. House Bill 476 by Representative Washburn of the 141st, Knight of the 130th, Powell of the 32nd, Kelly of the 16th, Thomas of the 21st, a bill relating to professional engineers and land surveyors. House Bill 477 by Representative Watson of the 172nd, Smith of the 70th, Rhodes of the 120th, and Knight of the 130th, a bill relating to tax credit and qualified donation of real property. House Bill 478 by Representative Rich of the 97th, Burchett of the 176th, Holcomb of the 81st, Ballinger of the 23rd, Gravely of the 67th, and others, a bill relating to opinions and expert testimony. House Bill 479 by Representative Reeves of the 34th, Hogan of the 179th, Gilliard of the 162nd, Frazier of the 126th, Deloach of the 167th, and others, a bill relating to criminal procedure. House Bill 480 by Representative Washburn of the 141st, Jones of the 47th, Carpenter of the 4th, Moore of the 95th, Crow of the 110th, and others, a bill relating to mechanics and materialmen liens. House Bill 481 by Representative Reeves of the 34th, and Ilowitz of the 42nd, Belton of the 112th, Kelly of the 16th, Widower of the 119th, and others, bill relating to imposition rate computation exemptions from state income taxes. House Bill 482 by Representative Lim of the 99th and Holcomb of the 81st, a bill relating to ad valorem taxation of property. House Bill 483 by Representative Fry of the 118th, Drenner of the 85th, and Ilowitz of the 42nd, Alexander of the 66th, Moore of the 95th, a bill relating to property owners and associations and covenants and warranties. House Bill 484 by Representative Fry of the 118th, Holcomb of the 81st, Beverly of the 143rd, Wynn of the 89th, Alexander of the 66th, and others, a bill relating to holidays and observances. House Resolution 161 by Representative Gilliard of the 162nd, Stevens of the 164th, Petrie of the 166th, and Mallow of the 163rd, resolution creating the House Study Committee on the Nancy Hanks passenger rail line from Savannah to Atlanta. House Resolution 162 by Representative Metz of the 55th, Smyre of the 135th, Stevens of the 164th, Glanton of the 75th, Kendrick of the 93rd, and others, resolution creating the House Study Committee on the History of Historically Black Colleges and Universities. House Resolution 163 by Representative Fry of the 118th, Beverly of the 143rd, Schofield of the 60th, Davis of the 87th, Wynn of the 89th, and others, resolution creating the House Study Committee to evaluate workplace safety and labor law enforcement in Georgia. House Resolution 164 by Representative Lim of the 99th and Holcomb of the 81st, a resolution proposing amendment to the Constitution so as to authorize the General Assembly to provide by general law for valuation of open space land subject to a contract for an agricultural incentive zone. House Resolution 165 by Representative McLaurin of the 51st, Schofield of the 60th, Kennard of the 102nd, Mitchell of the 106th, Park of the 101st, and others, resolution providing for an inquiry of certain matters related to the Department of Corrections. Senate Bill 27 by Senator Thompson of the 14th, Kirkpatrick of the 32nd, Duggan of the 30th, Hatchett of the 50th, Hufstetler of the 52nd, and others, a bill relating to certain military certifications that entitle persons to obtain certain professional licenses. Senate Bill 43 by Senator Brass of the 28th, Mullis of the 53rd, Miller of the 49th, Alberts of the 56th, Gann of the 47th, and others, a bill relating to enumeration of unfair methods of competition, and unfair or deceptive acts or practices and penalty. Senate Bill 45 by Senator Thompson of the 14th, Albers of the 56th, Gooch of the 51st, Mullis of the 53rd, Beach of the 21st, and others, a bill relating to general provisions of professions and businesses. Senate Bill 53 by Senator Hufstetler of the 52nd, Albers of the 56th, Butler of the 55th, Hickman of the 4th, Kirkpatrick 32nd, and others, a bill relating to the Georgia Technology Authority. Senate Bill 87 by Senator Redd of the 33rd, Miller of the 49th, Butler of the 55th, Tillery of the 19th, Harbison of the 15th, and others, a bill relating to tax returns and furnishing of information. Through second readers.
Reports of standing committees. The clerk will read.
Representative Greg Morris of the 156th District, Chairman of the Committee on Banks and Banking, submitted the following report. Mr. Speaker, your Committee on Banks and Banking has had under consideration the following bill of the House and has instructed me to report the same back to the House with the following recommendations. House Bill 306 do pass. Respectfully submitted. Representative Greg Morris of the 156th District, Chairman. Representative Matt Dubnik of the 29th District, Chairman of the Committee on Education, submitted the following report. Mr. Speaker, Committee on Education has had under consideration the following bill of the House and has instructed me to report the same back to the House with the following recommendations. House Bill 455 do pass by substitute. Respectfully submitted. Representative Matt Dubnik of the 29th District, Chairman. Representative Darlene Taylor, 173rd District, Chairman of the Committee on Governmental Affairs, submitted the following report. Mr. Speaker, your Committee on Governmental Affairs is in consideration of the following bills of the House and instructed me to report the same back to the House with the following recommendations. House Bill 161 do pass. House Bill 286 do pass by committee substitute. Respectfully submitted. Representative Darlene Taylor, 173rd District, Chairman. Representative Chuck Martin of the 49th District, Chairman of the Committee on Higher Education, submitted the following report. Mr. Speaker, your Committee on Higher Education has had in consideration the following bill of the House. It instructed me to report the same back to the House with the following recommendations. House Bill 152 do pass by substitute. Respectfully submitted. Representative Chuck Martin of the 49th District, Chairman. Representative James Burgett of the 176th District, Chairman of the Committee on Judiciary and Non-Civil, submitted the following report. Mr. Speaker, Committee on Judiciary and Non-Civil has had under consideration the following bills and resolution of the House. Instruct me to report the same back to the House. The following recommendations: House Bill 141 do pass. House Bill 367 do pass. House Resolution 120 do pass. Respectfully submitted, Representative James Burchett of the 176th District, Chairman. Representative Jay Collins, the 68th District, Chairman of the Committee on Public Safety and Homeland Security, submitted the following report. Mr. Speaker, your Committee on Public Safety and Homeland Security has held in consideration the following bills of the House and the Senate. Has instructed me to report the same back to the House. The following recommendations: Senate Bill 60 do pass. House Bill 248 do pass. House Bill 247 do pass by committee substitute. House Bill 218 do pass by committee substitute. Respectfully submitted, Representative Jay Collins of the 68th District, Chairman. Representative Gerald Green of the 157th District, Chairman of the Committee on State Properties, submitted the following report. Mr. Speaker, Committee on State Properties is out of consideration the following resolutions of the House and instructed me to report same back to the House. The following recommendations: House Resolution 142 do pass. House Resolution 143 do pass by committee substitute. Respectfully submitted, Representative Gerald Green of the 151st District, Chairman. Representative Sean Blackman of the 146th District, Chairman of the Committee on Ways and Means, submitted the following report. Mr. Speaker, your Committee on Ways and Means has had in consideration the following bills of the House and instructed me to report the same back to the House. The following recommendations: House Bill 114 do pass. House Bill 149 do pass by committee substitute. House Bill 292 do pass. House Bill 317 do pass by committee substitute. House Bill 374 do pass. Respectfully submitted, Representative Shaw Blackman of the 146th District, Chairman. That completes the reading of the reports of standing committees.
All right, we're going on now to morning orders. If you have signed up for a morning order, please be prepared and be at the front of the chamber. We're going to limit morning orders to 1 minute each this morning. Please give attention to the members in the well. The chair recognizes Chairman Darlene Taylor for a morning order.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, members of the House. In honor of Black History Month, today I bring you a new history. I'm proud to recognize Dr. Darrell Crenshaw. He's a nephrologist who lives in Thomasville. Dr. Crenshaw's first encounter in doctoring occurred when he was 10 years old. As a youngster in Selma, Alabama, his cat Spot was injured, and at that direction of the local veterinarian, he was able to save his precious pet. Later, as he grew up, he knew exactly what he wanted to do. He became a doctor, a nephrologist, because of witnessing the number of family members with hypertension and kidney disease, a malady that affects many African Americans. He received his medical degree from Tulane University and completed further studies at the University of Alabama and trained at Emory in nephrology. He practiced at the Georgia Kidney and Hypertension Clinic and is a member of the Archibald COVID-19 Task Force. He's also a clinical professor of medicine at Florida State University and the Philadelphia College of Osteopathic Medicine. He has been praised as a physician's physician. I am honored and proud that Dr. Crenshaw is the first African American to be named Chief of Staff at Archibald Medical Center. Congratulations to Dr. Crenshaw and our community. Thank you. I yield the well.
Chair recognizes Chairman Dave Belton for a morning order.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. 2 decades ago, Georgia ranked 50th on the SAT. That's right, ladies and gentlemen, we were dead last. Now, for the first time ever, Georgia beats the nation on the SAT. We beat the nation in the ACT 4 years in a row, and we have the 13th best AP scores in the entire nation. 2 decades ago, Georgia graduation rate was 53%. That's right, almost half of Georgians did not graduate. Now our graduation rate is 84%, a record. 2 decades ago, Georgia was the worst, 8th worst on the K-12 report card. Now we're 13th best. That's right, we went from 8th worst to 13th best in just a few short years. How do we get there? We consistently invest over 55% of our entire budget directly to our children. We restored local controls, but most of all, we got out of the teacher classroom and let teachers teach. I stand here today to commend our Georgia teachers, especially in this year of COVID, for their tireless work, their selfless dedication to our most valuable treasure, our precious children. Thank you.
Chair recognizes Chairman Lynn Smith for a morning order.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members of the House. This time last year, as a thank you for your overwhelming support for me when my husband Charlie suddenly died, I brought you a thank you gift of homemade cheese straws. Well, I brought some for you this year, as well as a repeat thank you, and to take this moment to reflect on the power we have as a body that I felt so strongly that day. When I saw you at the memorial service, a phrase kept coming to my mind. The whole is greater than the sum of all its parts. We're one phenomenal body when we pull for a member. Thank you.
Chair recognizes Representative Nelson for a morning order.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and good morning, colleagues. I rise for a moment in Black history. Never be limited by other people's limited imaginations, by Dr. Mae Jemison. The beautiful thing about this quote is the fact that it was said by the first ever African-American woman to become an astronaut. Many children dream about going to space when they get older, but only a few will accomplish this dream. Again, this is your moment in Black history. I yield the well.
Chair recognizes Chairman Dickey and Representative Washburn and Representative Holmes for a morning order.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and members. This morning, we wanted to come and recognize and congratulate our Monroe County's Mary Persons competition cheer team for winning the state 3A title championship this week. So special congratulations go to Coach Kyle Ward and the 8 seniors who won region for the last 4 years and now capped their careers off with a state championship. So congratulations to Mary Persons cheer team. Thank y'all.
Yay. I'm going to send y'all that.
Chair recognizes Representative Carpenter for a morning order.
Ladies and gentlemen of this House, on this day in Black history in 1965, Andre Young was born in Compton, California. Dr. Dre is considered by many as the founder of the West Coast rap scene, spending years as a DJ developing his style that has inspired thousands of rappers across the world, including Eminem, Kendrick Lamar, Snoop Dogg, and Tupac. His 1992 album, The Chronic, received multiple Grammys and was one of the year's bestsellers. Dr. Dre, a man of unity, brought adolescents from all races together who found common ground with his smooth lyrics and his heavy beats. You can also thank Dr. Dre for those fantastic headphones that you see all around the United States and the world. Worth over $800 million, Dre is an icon in the music industry. This is a personal shout out to Dr. Dre. Thanks for teaching me words that I'm unable to use in this well, and thank you especially for California love. I yield the well.
Representative Carpenter. We have numerous requests that you just pick out a few lines from two or three of these artists.
All right. So let me welcome everybody to the Wild Wild West.
Chair recognizes Representative Bonner for a morning order.
Thank you for letting me follow that, Mr. Speaker. This morning I rise to pay tribute to a great American. Rush Hudson Limbaugh III was born in 1951 in Cape Girardeau, Missouri, and began his career in radio in 1967. Now, regardless of where you fall on the political spectrum, you cannot deny the success Rush achieved over the course of his career. He revolutionized the dying media of radio. In 1988, his radio show was syndicated, and for the next 3 decades, he dominated the airwaves and became the godfather of talk radio. For 3 hours a day, 5 days a week, Rush spoke with millions of Americans, establishing himself firmly as the voice of the conservative movement. He was enshrined in the Radio Hall of Fame and the National Association of Broadcasters Hall of Fame, and in 2020, he was awarded our nation's highest civilian award, the Presidential Medal of Freedom. But perhaps his greatest achievement is the inspiration he provided to millions of people like me and many of you over the years. Rush believed in the best of America and summed up his views in this quote: "We do not look out across this country and see the average American, the person that makes this country work, and see that person with contempt. We don't think that person doesn't have what it takes. We believe that person can be the best he or she wants to be if certain things are just removed from their path, like onerous taxes, regulations, and too much government." Rest in peace, El Rushbo. Mega dittos, and God bless. Thank you.
Chair recognizes Representative Schofield for a morning order. She waves. Chair recognizes Representative Hutchinson for a morning order.
Good morning, colleagues. Today I bring to you Michaela, Macy, and Bailey. Michaela is 15 years old, and her twin sisters, Macy and Bailey, are 10. These are siblings who enjoy jumping on their trampoline, playing on their tablets, watching Frozen 2, not Frozen 1, but Frozen 2, and SpongeBob SquarePants. They love listening to all types of music. Michaela is a talkative teen, while Macy and Bailey are quiet and shy. Michaela, Macy, and Bailey are placed together and should remain together. I chose to highlight this group because siblings to remain together are extremely difficult. This is a teenager and 2 preteens. They should stay together at all costs. And this state is very lucky to have an adoption center like we do that's kept them together this long. So let's try to keep them together in their forever home. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield the well.
We are now going on to the rules calendar. Going on to the rules calendar, the clerk will read the caption to House Bill 111.
House Bill 111 by Representative Williamson of the 115th and others, to be entitled an act to amend Chapter 1 and Title 7 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to financial institutions so as to clarify and remove superfluous language. This bill having referred to the Committee on Banks and Banking, that committee recommends that this bill do pass.
Chair recognizes Representative Williamson to present the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Colleagues, I bring before you today the annual Department of Banking and Finance housekeeping bill. I just want to remind you that this continues our multi-year effort to streamline and make our Georgia Financial Services Code more efficient, thereby attracting more businesses to Georgia. It comes as a collaborative effort between the Department of Banking and Finance and the regulated businesses which oversees, which include banks, credit unions, installment lenders, money service businesses, money transmitters, sellers of payment instruments, as well as the mortgage lenders and brokers laws that it supervises. It's supported by both the Georgia Bankers Association, the community bankers, the League of Southeastern Credit Unions, and we all know that was formerly known as the Georgia Credit Union Affiliates, mortgage bankers, and the Georgia Financial Services Association. It's got several pandemic-related changes to it. It allows for virtual meetings that we're all very familiar with now. It gives some flexibility. It's in the installment loan lending area. Lenders, by mutual consent with the borrowers, can freeze the shot clock at no cost, not a penny extra cost to the borrower for however many months it takes the borrower to get back on their feet with pre-agreed terms with the installment lender. It also gives credit unions the ability to expel a member that is acting in a behavior that's detrimental to the overall goals of the credit union, but that does require 2/3 vote of the members. And it additionally, that's really the highlights. It addresses some mergers, gives more flexibility in mergers between banks, credit unions, and both nationally chartered banks and state chartered banks. And it comes without objection from any no known objections. Be happy to answer any questions. Otherwise, I ask for your favorable consideration. I'll yield the well.
You do not appear to have any questions.
I yield the well. Thank you.
Is there any objection to the previous question being ordered? The chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. Is there any objection to agreeing to the report of the committee, which was favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall this bill now pass? All those in favor of the passage of House Bill 111 will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machines. Have all members voted? Have all members now voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machines. On the passage of House Bill 111, the ayes are 160. The nays are 0. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. Clerk will read the caption to House Bill 165.
House Bill 165 by Representative Barr, the 103rd, and others, to be entitled an act to amend Part 4 of Article 1 of Chapter 8 of Title 40, the official code of Georgia annotated relating to horns, exhaust systems, mirrors, and windshields. This bill having referred to the Committee on Motor Vehicles. That committee recommends that this bill do pass.
Chair recognizes Chairman Timothy Barr to present the bill.
Thank you, sir. Good morning, colleagues. You may be familiar with this bill as we have passed it out of this House before. It had complications in the Senate with them adding something that wasn't great to it. On my way in this morning from the parking deck, I did notice a few violations amongst our body. So if we pass this law, what I'm talking about is being able to put a device holder on your front windshield. So currently it is illegal to have a GPS, a cell phone, or perhaps, as many folks are now doing, a recording device pointing out the front of your windshield. It's currently illegal. This bill would repeal that, and you would be able to put something on your front windshield as long as it did not obstruct the driver's view. We've passed this before. A lot of folks are in favor of this, and I would appreciate your yes vote on this bill.
You do not, you do have a question. Do you yield for a question?
Yes, sir.
Chair recognizes Representative Donahue to your right for a question.
Does the gentleman yield?
To my friend, of course.
I've got one problem with the bill. I've bought 4 of these appliances that you put on the front of the windshield. And I put my phone on it, but the windshield wiper keeps knocking it off. Is there some other thing maybe I'm missing?
Yes, sir. I might explain that to you offline.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Good move.
Mr. Speaker, I yield the well.
Is there any objection to the previous question being ordered? The chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. Is there any objection to agreeing to the report of the committee, which was favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall this bill now pass? All those in favor of the passage of the bill will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machines. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machines. On the passage of House Bill 165, the ayes are 166, the nays are 0. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. Clerk will read the caption to House Bill 353.
House Bill 353 by Representative Jones, the 25th and others, to be entitled an act to amend Article 3 of Chapter 6 entitled 40, the official code of Georgia and Territory relating to driving on the right side of the roadway, overtaking and passing. This bill having referred to the Committee on Motor Vehicles, that committee recommends that this bill do pass by committee substitute.
Chair recognizes Chairman Todd Jones to present the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Good morning, colleagues. 353 is 25 lines, but hopefully I can provide a quick summary for you. The first part of the bill provides clarity in terms of your ability to maintain the 3-foot passing rule around a bike and allows you, with caution and if it is safe, to cross the yellow line. The second piece of that bill, or the part of the language, speaks to what you can do if you cannot pass safely, and we lifted directly from current statute the sanitation law, which basically provides for how you would pass a sanitation worker. So that does not create new law, it just basically provides a shift from the sanitation worker and adds it to the cyclist. So I think that's an important note there. I would like to, before I yield for questions, I'd like to thank Chairman Corbett and I'd like to thank Representative Couch for their input on this bill. So thank you.
Do you yield for questions?
Yes, sir. I yield for one.
Chair recognizes Representative LaHood to your right for a question.
Thank you. Does the gentleman yield?
Yes, sir.
Is it not true that this change in law maintains a 3-foot passing buffer?
Yes, sir.
Do you further yield?
Yes, sir.
Does this law do anything to address the dress code for cyclists? And the reason I ask is I see a lot of these stretchy leotard type pants being worn, and it could be distracting to some people I know.
Yeah, it does. It allows everyone to wear the stretchy leotards other than Representative Ridley.
Thank you.
I yield the well. Thank you.
Gentleman has yielded the well. Is there any objection to the previous question being ordered? The chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. Is there any objection to adopting the committee substitute? The chair hears none. The committee substitute is adopted. Is there any objection to agreeing to the report of the committee, which was favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall this bill now pass? All those in favor of the passage of the bill will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machines. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machines on the passage of House Bill 353. The ayes are 164, the nays are 2. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. Clerk will read the caption to House Bill 169.
House Bill 169 by Representative Corbett of the 174th and others to be titled an act to amend Code Section 45-147 of the official code of Georgia and Territory relating to requirements for issuance of commercial driver licenses or instruction permits. This bill having referred to the Committee on Motor Vehicles. That committee recommends that this bill do pass.
Chair recognizes Chairman Corbett to present the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members of the House, I bring before you House Bill 169, LC 392759. This bill is a department bill. It adds the requirement to receive a commercial driver's license. The person has to have completed a commercial driver training course. This is a federal requirement that as of June of 2022, if we do not adopt this, Georgia CDL license will not be recognized outside of the state, so it's a federal requirement. And then the second part of the bill, all it does is change on a commercial driver's instruction permit, just basically a learner's permit. The old way you could get it for 180 days, and you had the option to renew for 180 days with an additional fee. This changes it to 365 days with just the one fee initially. And that's all this bill does, Mr. Speaker, and I'll answer any questions if there are any.
You do not have any questions.
Thank you. I appreciate your favorable consideration.
Is there any objection to the previous question being ordered? The chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. Is there any objection to agreeing to the report of the committee, which was favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall this bill now pass? All those in favor of the passage of the bill will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machines. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machines on the passage of House Bill 169. The ayes are 162, the nays are 7. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. What purpose does Representative Maynor rise? She waves. Clerk will read the caption to House Bill 212.
House Bill 212 by Representative Carpenter IV and others to be titled an act to amend Code Section 3139-4 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to persons authorized to issue orders not to resuscitate. This bill having referred to the Committee on Judiciary. That committee recommends that this bill do pass by committee substitute.
Chair recognizes Representative Carpenter to present the bill.
Thank you, Speaker. House, I come before you on House Bill 212. This is a bill of serious nature, actually. I know I'm not always serious, but this is an opportunity to clear up a gray area in the law in regards to how we issue do not resuscitate orders at our hospitals across Georgia. There is some concern that the language as it reads now that they may seek the parents' written or oral consent, and we're just saying that they may only. So that way that there's no unclarity in the law that has some parents concerned. And this was an issue out in Missouri. It's called Simon's Law. There was an instance where the doctors had placed a DNR in the folder of a child, and the parents did not realize it, and they did not resuscitate. So it's an issue that concerns some Georgians, and it gives us helps protect children. And I'll be glad to take any questions.
You do not appear to have any questions.
Well, I'll yield the will.
Is there any objection to the previous question being ordered? The chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. Is there any objection to adopting the committee substitute? The chair hears none. The committee substitute is adopted. Is there any objection to agreeing to the report of the committee, which was favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall this bill now pass? All those in favor of the passage of the bill will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machines. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machines on the passage of House Bill 212. The ayes are 170, the nays are 0. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. Clerk will read the caption to House Bill 168.
House Bill 168 by Representative Petrie, the 166 and others, to be entitled an act to amend Code Section 42-536 of the Official Code of Georgia Annotated relating to confidentiality of information supplied by inmates. This bill having referred to the Committee on Judiciary and Non-Civil, that committee recommends that this bill do pass.
The Rules Committee has voted this morning to limit debate on this bill to 1 hour. Chair will allocate 30 minutes to each side, and the chair recognizes to present the bill Chairman Jesse Petrie.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen of the House, I present to you today House Bill 168. This bill last session was House Bill 885. It passed this House and was a casualty of COVID over in the Senate, I guess you could say. It's an important measure to my community, and I think to everyone in this room's community. And I want to begin by just telling you why. Let me just begin very briefly by telling you why this bill is here before you today. Back in 2016, and I'm giving you one example of many, sadly. Back in 2016 in Savannah, we had an individual by the name of Tory Scott who was paroled early and released into the community and set out on a mission, sadly, to do as much calamity as he could in our community. He raped 2 young ladies at Savannah State University, one of our historically black colleges there. He raped 2 young ladies there, forever ruining their lives. He subsequently kidnapped a nurse in the Candler Hospital parking lot in Savannah, raped her, actually attempted to kill her, but she escaped. He then went on to my brother Carl Gilliard up there's district, to Port Wentworth, and he didn't just kidnap and rape a woman there, he actually raped her with her infant child in the house and then murdered her while her husband was overseas serving his country. All of this done by a man whose sentence, which had been handed down by a jury of his peers, had been cut short. Now, this discussion today is not about parole. We have a constitutional access to parole. It is not a right. It is a privilege that are granted to some. And so this isn't about that. This bill today is about how we protect our people in our community from people like Tory Scott. And so this bill speaks directly to allowing the chief law enforcement officers in our community, our DAs, expressly that's who we're speaking about, allowing them to have access to what is currently surprising, I think, to all of us and to certainly all of your constituents, what is considered a state secret. How that inmate is behaving in prison in our Georgia correctional system is a state secret. It is not available to the public, and I'm not saying that it should be, but it is a state secret from our district attorneys. And so our district attorneys, in the process of parole, have a right to object to a parole. When the parole board is going to truncate a sentence handed down by the community and allow someone to be released early, that person that is most responsible for protecting the community has a right to object to that. To do that, what this bill attempts to do is to allow that district attorney to know how that inmate is behaving in prison in order to decide whether they want to object or not. Because this individual may have been sentenced 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago. But I'll tell you one thing that everybody commonsensically knows is how you behave today is a pretty good indicator of how you're going to behave tomorrow. And so what we have discovered is that many of these individuals that have been paroled into the community actually have been exhibiting very inappropriate behaviors while in prison. And so this bill today is expressly about providing information on that inmate's record to district attorneys, but I want to mention something very important. It only circumscribes, this isn't about every individual considered for parole, only those crimes that you see described here in this bill. And if you will look on line 18, dangerous sexual offenses against minors. That is 19 crimes, which are the most heinous, disgusting, and despicable crimes against children you can imagine. Only those crimes, and then the 7 deadly sins, which are described on line 21 as serious violent felonies. Serious violent felonies are murder, rape, armed robbery, aggravated child molestation, aggravated sodomy, aggravated sexual battery, and manslaughter. So this bill only relates to information going to district attorneys. This bill only relates to inmates who have committed the most heinous crimes that I just described. And what it does is allow that district attorney, if they so desire, to discover how that inmate is doing in prison so that they can choose whether or not they want to object to that inmate's release. Now, we have a lot of new members here, but I think everybody knows this, but just to be clear, the parole board doesn't have to, the parole board has complete autonomy. They don't have to consider that objection in any way, shape, or form. This is about whether that person that we entrust to protect our communities has a right to at least make them aware of their concerns. All right, there's an important piece I want to mention. At the end of this bill, if you'll look at lines 47 to 50, I added a provision here to make it very clear that what we seek to do is exactly what I've explained to you. Today, if this information is declassified by the Commissioner of Corrections and provided to a DA, it has to be declassified today if it is given, because it is a state secret. There is no provision that would criminalize sharing that information more broadly. And so what I've done in this bill is made it clear that to share this information or to make it public would be a misdemeanor crime. So again, I hope that everyone can see that the goal here is to see that district attorneys have this information. This information is not being shared to you and I or to anyone out in the public, but to those district attorneys, in order that we can protect people like the 4 women and countless others related to those 4 women that I began by describing what they have been through. It's our duty to protect people from individuals like that. And I would remind everyone here that if you get a chance, look up Department of Justice statistics. Our recidivism rate with violent criminals is very poor, folks. 72% of violent felons will reoffend with a violent crime within 5 years. That's National Department of Justice statistics. So folks, listen, we want everybody to have access to parole, but let's make sure that we're letting those out that aren't going to be a threat to the people of this state. Mr. Speaker, I think I've explained it as well as I can. I'm glad to stand for any questions that members may have.
You have a question if you care to yield.
Yes, sir, I yield, Mr. Speaker.
Chair recognizes the minority leader of the House, Leader Beverly, to your left for a question.
Does the gentleman yield?
Yes, sir, I do.
I'll draw your attention to line 36. It says, any record provided for under the subparagraph shall be held in confidence. What is a DA able to do with this information?
Say again, sir.
What is the DA able to do with this information?
To review it in order to discover if they choose to object to the parole of that particular inmate.
Great. For the gentleman further.
Yes,
here,
sir. Yes, sir.
Is there any provision in here that gives the defendant, potentially, who's up for parole, the defense counsel the same right to the information?
Yes, sir. So the answer to that is a little complicated, so let me answer it that way if you don't mind. So whenever there's an incident in prison, whenever there's a disciplinary action, the inmate is immediately provided with a written record of that incident. So that information is always, to your question, yes, provided to the inmate. However, to be very clear, the precise information we are providing to the DA would not be the same precise information compiled that would be provided to the inmate. That is correct. But again, if I might add, that is because this bill is only about parole. This bill is not about the judicial process in the broader context. This is about whether this individual who's already been adjudicated and sentenced, whether this individual should have the benefit, the clemency, the amnesty of parole. So it's a different process. But yes,
just to be clear, if a defendant, a gentleman and lady's up for parole, they don't disclose this information to the person who's defending them. So they don't disclose the information to the defense counsel. How would the defense counsel actually get this information that the DA has? Because it seems like you're setting up a situation where there's information asymmetry that could lead to a problem in a honest defense of a person who's up for parole.
Okay, Mr. Leader, so my answer to that would be as follows. So first of all, you speak to the defense. This is an individual who's already been defended and sentenced. He's now seeking clemency. Little different process. But to your point, that individual, whatever infractions, whatever behaviors he's had in prison, have all been provided to him in writing that he can provide. First of all, he knows it anyway, but he can provide that information to anyone who seeks to defend his access to parole. This particular bill is expressly about the district attorney, okay, in that jurisdiction that sentenced this individual having access to that information because they don't know how that individual has behaved, unlike the inmate himself. They don't know. The community in which these heinous crimes occurred doesn't know how he's behaved in prison. And what I'm seeking is to have one individual, that one individual whose duty is to protect the people, to at least know how he's behaved in prison. But thank you for the questioning, Mr. Leader.
Do you further yield?
No, I do, Speaker.
Chair recognizes the chairman from which the bill came, Chairman Burchett, up in the gallery in the middle.
Thank you to my friend in the well. Do you yield?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman, I yield.
So, as I understand the bill, what the information that we're seeking to give the district attorney is information regarding the behavior of these inmates as they're locked up. Is that correct?
Yes, sir, that is correct.
Does the gentleman further yield?
Yes, sir, I yield.
Wouldn't an inmate know what his behavior is while he's locked up?
Yes, sir. As I was just describing to the leader here, I think that is correct, sir.
Thank you.
Do you further yield?
Yes, sir, Mr. Speaker. I will yield.
Chair recognizes Representative Holcomb to your left for a question.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Does the gentleman yield?
Yes, sir, I yield.
I'm trying to figure this out because I don't know this area. I'm a former prosecutor, so certainly I appreciate and agree with you in terms of pursuing justice for victims. But can you describe for us with more color the types of information that this would produce? You mentioned disciplinary records and things like that. Can you just really get into granular level detail of what information might be provided under this? Because as you mentioned, has nothing to do with the underlying crime. It's only with the behavior in the correctional system.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Representative, very good question. So you're correct. The district attorney already knows what crime occurred and what they've sentenced them for. What they seek to understand, what our district attorneys who very much support this measure, what they seek to understand is how was that individual behaving in prison most recently? And so here's the things that you discover as I've become somewhat of an expert in these matters since I've been up here. And here's what you discover. There's all kinds of sexually inappropriate behavior that goes on in prison. There are all kinds of offenses that occur in prison, and all kinds of things that occur that would be inappropriate outside of prison, but they happen in prison. And if individuals are operating that way in prison, pretty good indicator that they may be a risk to the broader society. So I don't know if I can speak more specifically than that, but it's about behavior. It's about how that individual is I use the term behaving, their disciplinary record, et cetera. And again, this is as the DA chooses to seek it. Your county district attorney may not be interested in gathering this information. But if the DA in Chatham County chooses to discover how Torrey Scott is behaving in prison before he's released early again, they would have the ability to discover how he's behaved recently before he's released.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for
can
the
I
good
ask
question.
A follow-up?
Yes, sir, my friend.
So we're not, if somebody commits, you mentioned sexual violence, if somebody commits a sexual violent act, they could still be charged a crime for that in the correction system, correct? So we're not talking about that, we're just talking about something lesser that would be documented in some form. Is that accurate?
Yes, sir, and I'm trying not to be ugly here before everybody, but let me give you an example. We had another gentleman that was where the file was disclosed, and we know a gentleman by the name of Fabian Wright in Chatham County who had multiple forced sexual acts in prison that were not, he was not charged with a crime. You find things such as, you find things such as inmates who routinely masturbate in public. You find all of these things in that correctional record, having now worked on this so long. And that might be pertinent to understand how when an individual is in prison for a dangerous, violent sexual offense. It might be interesting to know that to a district attorney. So I'm trying to say it the best way I can. It's a very good question. But in that particular case, Fabian Wright was released early, and immediately we had an attempted rape again at Savannah State University. So just if you're interested. So I could go on all day with these cases. And, but that is, I hope that answers your question, Representative.
It does.
It is a good question, and I thank you for it.
Thank you.
Do you further yield?
Yes, sir. I want to answer all questions. Yes, sir.
Really?
Well, maybe not all, Speaker. I will
Really?
yield for one more, Mr. Speaker.
Or you could answer them all. Let's see, you've got, looks like about 12 or 13 members. Chair recognizes the Vice Chair of the Majority Caucus, Representative Gravely, to your right for a question.
So, gentlemen, you?
Yes, sir.
Is it not true that this measure has received wide support from both Republican DAs across the state as well as Democrat elected DAs across the state?
Yes, sir, my friend. That is absolutely correct. In fact, my understanding is your DA is supportive of this measure, as I understand it.
Well, to that point, that's a good point. Is it not true, does the gentleman further yield?
Yes, sir, I yield.
Is it not true that I represent a portion of Douglas County with several other colleagues here in the chamber, and she is the first female elected Democrat DA in Douglas County. As a newly elected DA, wouldn't this information be very important for her to know if she didn't prosecute these individuals, but these individuals would be returning back to their community, her community? Isn't this information pertinent for her to know?
Absolutely, sir. In fact, my good friend, you raise a great point that hasn't been raised yet. As we have new individuals in these roles as district attorneys who may not have sentenced this individual, as they look back on that history, this may be very helpful to them to see how that individual is behaving today. And I appreciate very much you bringing up the bipartisan support we're getting from district attorneys across the state on this measure. Thank you, sir. Very good point.
One final question, and I'll yield. Is it not true that my DA called me and asked if I would support this bill.
Yes,
Thank
sir.
you.
That is my understanding, as you made me aware. Mr. Speaker, I think I've done my best to answer any and all questions, and I yield the well.
The gentleman has yielded the well. We have one member who had signed up to speak on the measure. Chair recognizes Representative McLaurin to speak to the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, very much. I want to start by saying I actually really appreciate everybody's time today to talk about issues concerning people who are incarcerated, because for a lot of our time that we spend in this chamber, those issues are out of sight, out of mind, and it's easy to understand why. I mean, if I talk about out of sight, out of mind when it comes to single-family homes and apartments separated by trees in my own community, right? So let alone how out of sight, out of mind it is for us when we think about what people go through when they're incarcerated in this state, especially during a year like we've just had, and what it means to be under the absolute control of the Department of Corrections for every aspect of your life. I want to speak very briefly to the concerns that you've heard raised by a couple colleagues on the floor. This is not, as the chairman said, a normal criminal process. It's not, you don't have the same rights that you would ordinarily have. That's exactly right. You don't have a right to parole. So this is a privilege granted by the state, and the information that DAs or the parole board has access to, that's all discretionary with the state. So it's not like the Constitution, we violate anything like that if we don't give defense attorneys information. But let me tell you about what we heard about in committee. We heard testimony that somebody's file said in it that they were gang raped, or what happened was they were gang raped while they were in custody, but the information reported to pardons and paroles was that they were in a gang because the word gang appeared. So again, with respect, the comments made about shouldn't a person know what happens to them, they absolutely do know what happens to them. But that doesn't mean that information is accurately conveyed to pardons and paroles. But that's actually not even why I'm up here. Why I'm up here today is to speak to a Department of Corrections that is in disarray. The Georgia Department of Corrections is in disarray. What we haven't talked about this morning in discussing this bill is why pardons and paroles already has all the information we're talking about. Pardons and paroles has access to every file for every person in DOC custody. That's the testimony we got from pardons and paroles in committee. But there's no statutory authority for the Pardons and Paroles Board to have access to every single file. And I'm not just talking about serious violent felonies, I'm not just talking about dangerous sexual offenses, which is a new term added in this bill, because previously it was only 7 deadlies. They're shared with pardons and paroles. The reason they have access to every file is because the Commissioner of Corrections is saying, Pardons and Paroles testified, that the Commissioner of Corrections has declassified, pursuant to this code section that already exists, declassified all of the inmate files in DOC possession so that pardons and paroles can have access. But if all files are declassified, that means none of them are state secrets anymore, which means we wouldn't even need the bill. We never got an answer to this. We were just getting into this discussion, and y'all know how it goes. Move, do, pass. Right? Now we're here. We'll clean it up later. We'll figure it out. But now we're here. What this bill purports to do is say that for serious violent felonies, dangerous sexual offenses, the DA will be one of the people carved out that will get access to these state secrets that are still apparently state secrets. Pardons and paroles will have them too. But again, if you look at OCGA 42943, which is the authority for the Pardons and Paroles Board, that's not in this bill. There's a specific statutory basis for them to have access to serious violent felony records, but not dangerous sexual offenses. You set up the situation where if you don't declassify the files, and you know, under the fictional world of this bill where the files are not declassified, where they're still state secrets, you might subject DAs to criminal liability for sending dangerous sexual offense information to pardons and paroles because there's no statutory basis in the code for pardons and paroles to have access to information. But again, that's not what we're hearing. The fictional world of the bill is not actually the true world. The true world is the commissioner has declassified every single file. And yet, strangely, I agree with the chairman, they're not available to the public. They're state secrets that have been declassified that none of us have access to,
The DAs should have access to them. We should all have access to them if they're declassified. Are you confused yet? Because I am. What I'm trying to tell you is that the Department of Corrections is not following any systemic policy on this issue. They are not following statutory authority. Are they declassifying files? Are they not declassifying files? Will DAs be subject to criminal prosecution? Will they not? No, none of this matters to the DOC because there's not substantial enough oversight for any of us really to care, sadly, whether they're following statutes or not. So what do they probably do? Send a zip file of PDFs to pardons and paroles, call it a day, and they don't worry about whether that's compliant. That's what's happening. When we don't exercise meaningful oversight over the DOC, you get the year 2020. You get record numbers of homicides, suicides, riots at one facility that in some cases are as many as the number of riots in entire other state prison systems. You get rampant spread of COVID with bad mask policies. You get understaffing that causes just walking down the hallway to be unsafe. It's one thing to punish somebody, and it's another thing to take away their human rights. And this bill is one tiny appearance of a Band-Aid. It's not even a real Band-Aid because the legal effect is still in question. But it exists within a larger, broader context of failures by the DOC and frankly by us, who are supposed to exercise oversight over this department, which has hundreds of thousands of Georgians in custody. And if we don't pay attention, and if we just go through the motions and we pass bills like this that purport to do something that probably ends up really having no legal effect, but just papers over systematic statutory violations, then we're abdicating our duty. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield the well.
Is there any objection to the previous question being ordered? The chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. Is there any objection to agreeing to the report of the committee, which was favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall this bill now pass? All those in favor of the passage of the bill will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machines. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machines on the passage of House Bill 168. The ayes are 99, the nays are 66. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. Clerk will read the caption to a group of privilege resolutions.
Honoring the life and memory of Walter Milton Green. Honoring the life and memory of Jerome Andrew Golden. Honoring the life and memory of George Edward McKibben. Honoring the life and memory of Samuel Clyburn Jr. Recognizing the 47th anniversary of the Consulate General of Japan in Atlanta. Recognizing and commending Anne Lefebvre. Recognizing and commending Veronica Higgs Cope. Commending and congratulating Maggie Jane Butler. Recognizing and commending Helen Butler. Recognizing February 23rd, 2021 as World Spay Day. Recognizing and congratulating Pastor Rex King upon the grand occasion of his retirement. Recognizing March 4th, 2021 as Be the Match Day. And for other purposes, that completes the reading of the privilege resolution.
Is there any objection to adopting the privilege resolutions? The chair hears none, and the resolutions are adopted. What purpose does Chairman Cooper rise?
Is it on? Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to make a motion.
State your motion.
I would ask that we move House Bill 377 from Public Safety and Homeland Security to Health and Human Services, and both chairs are in agreement.
Clerk will read the caption.
House Bill 377 by Representative Schofield, the 60th, and others, to be entitled an act to amend Article 2, Chapter 4, Title 17 of the Official Code of Georgia, annotated, relating to arrest by law enforcement officers generally.
On the lady's motion that House Bill 377 be moved from the Public Safety and Homeland Security Committee to Health and Human Services, is there objection? Is there objection? The chair hears none, and it is so ordered. We're going on now to announcements. If you have signed up for an announcement, please make your way to the front of the chamber. Chair recognizes the chair of the Majority Caucus, Chairman Hatchett, for an announcement.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Majority Caucus will meet in room 341 upon adjournment. A brief meeting in 341 upon adjournment. Thank you.
Chair recognizes the chair of the Juvenile Justice Committee, Chairman Ballinger, for an announcement.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your Juvenile Justice Committee will meet today at 1 o'clock in room 403 here at the CAP. Thank you so much.
Chair recognizes Representative McLean for an announcement.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Georgia Working Families Legislative Caucus will meet upon adjournment and pick up your lunches in room 307. Thank you.
Chair recognizes Representative Reeves for an announcement.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Reeves Subcommittee of Judiciary Non-Civil will meet approximately 5 minutes after the Majority Caucus is finished meeting, and we will be meeting in room 132. So that will be at approximately 12:35-ish or so. Thank you.
Chair recognizes Chairman Jay Collins for an announcement.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Public Safety and Homeland Security Committee, Subcommittee A, will be meeting at 12:45, 506 CLOB. That's 12:45, 506 CLOB.
Chair recognizes Chairman Alan Powell for an announcement.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Regulated Industries Committee will be meeting at 2 o'clock in 606. Very short meeting. We've got a bill that we've got to do some repair on it to send it back to rules.
Chair recognizes Chairman Jaspers for an announcement.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Transportation members, we have a joint meeting with the Senate today at 2 p.m. in 506.
Chair recognizes Representative Rick Williams for an announcement.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Right after the caucus meeting, Regulated Industries Alcohol and Tobacco Subcommittee will meet in room 606 CLOB. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Chair recognizes Representative Earhart for an announcement.
Shortly after our caucus meeting, the House, the Regulated Industries Subcommittee, Regulatory Subcommittee will be meeting at 1:30 in CLOB 415. See you there.
We will not be back until Monday in the chamber as a whole. I know that a lot of committees are meeting this afternoon and maybe even tomorrow. But I hope you'll join with me in wishing a happy birthday to the chair of the Industry and Labor Committee, Chairman Bill Werkheiser. That's actually tomorrow, Friday. He's having his birthday on Friday. And on Sunday, help me wish happy birthday to Representative Victor Anderson. Chair recognizes Chairman Petrie for an announcement.
Everybody, we will have at 2 o'clock a meeting of the Human Relations and Aging Committee, 2 o'clock today. Thank you.
That completes our announcements. Chair recognizes the Majority Leader of the House for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I move that this House stand adjourned until 10 a.m. Monday, February the 22nd, 2021.
The Majority Leader has moved that this House be adjourned until Monday, February 22, which is also the birthday of the first President of the United States, George Washington. Nobody keeps up with that anymore, though. All in favor of the gentleman's motion will vote, say aye. Those opposed will say no. The ayes have it. This House will be adjourned until Monday at 10 a.m.